Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the time champ versus the traditional time tracking. So we will discuss in detail about time champ and traditional time tracking methods and how it will help the organizations. Also we will discuss why hours logged don't equal to work done. Are you ready? Let's deep dive into the session. Here is an uncomfortable truth about traditional time tracking. An employee can log 8 hours and you have absolutely no idea what happened during these 8 hours. Were they in sales closing deals? Or they on YouTube watching videos? Your timesheets just says 8 hours worked. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and Research, the average knowledge worker is truly productive for approximately 2.8 hours in an 8 hours of workday. Shocking and surprising, right? Yes. Not 8 hours, not even 5 hours, less than 3. So what's happening during the other 5 plus hours? And more importantly, how would you even know? That is the question. There is a visibility gap we are going to unpack in this video. Are you ready? Let's look into it. We will cover the 5 critical questions traditional time tracking can't answer, the real cost of the blind spot, and what modern workforce monitoring platform like TimeChamp actually measures that changes the game for remote, hybrid, and distributed teams. Let's start with what most organizations are still using today. We talk about traditional time tracking. We are referring to manual timesheets, clock-ins and clock-out systems, and basic hours logging tools like Clockify or Toggle. These are the systems that have dominated workforce management for decades. These are simple, these are familiar, and for many teams, they feel like enough. But here is what these tools actually measure: start time, end time, total hours worked, and sometimes project tags or client codes. They answer one question: how long was someone on the clock? Am I correct? Yes. And that creates a fundamental assumption problem. The assumption is this: logged hours is equal to productive work. If someone logs 8 hours, we assume 8 hours of productive output. Correct? But research from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and productivity studies consistently shows that the average knowledge worker is truly productive for approximately 2.8 hours. Yes, you heard correct. It is 2.8 hours in an 8 hours of work day, not 8 hours, not even 7 hours, not even 5 hours. It is less than 3. So what's happening during the other 5 plus hours? Meetings that could have been emails, personal browsing, extended breaks, context switching, ideal time that never gets captured. Let me give you some real world examples where this model breaks down. Example 1. A marketing team member logs 8 hours on a campaign project. The timesheet shows a full day of work. Okay, the timesheet shows full day of work. But activity data would reveal 3 hours spent on social media, an hour and half on personal shopping sites, and only 2 hours of actual project work. The timesheet, it just says 8 hours. This is the example 1. Now we will check the example 2. A remote software developer clocks in at 9 a.m., checkouts at 6 p.m., 9 hours logged. But they went idle for cumulative periods totaling 4 hours throughout the day. You got it? No manager visibility, no accountability, just a timesheet that says 9 hours worked. Example 3. A contractor bills a client for 40 hours in a week. The invoice reflects full-time work, but without activity tracking, there is no way to verify whether those 40 hours included actual deliverable focused work or significant portion of unproductive time. The client pays for the 40 hours. They may have received 15 hours of actual output. So these are the examples of where the traditional time tracking breaks down. Now we will check what is the visibility gap. So if the traditional time tracking only tells us duration, what do we actually need to know? That is the real question. That's what we are going to unpack next. So you're ready, right? So if the traditional time tracking tells you when someone clocked in and clocked out, what's actually missing? You have the same question, right? Yes. What's actually missing? What are the questions that keep operations managers, IT directors, and HR leaders up at night? Questions that a simple timesheet can't answer. It's true, my friends. Many of HR leaders know this. Let me walk you through 5 critical visibility gaps that organizations face every single day. So 5 critical questions traditional tracking can't answer. The question number 1. What apps and websites consume work hours? Your time tracking system shows 8 hours logged. But what happened during those 8 hours? Was your team in Salesforce, Slack, or project management tools? Or were they bouncing between YouTube, social media, and personal emails? We worked with a mid-sized marketing agency, about 75 employees, who discovered something shocking when they implemented application tracking. 42% logged billable hours were spent in application that had nothing to do with the client work. 42%, friends. That's not a productivity problem. That's a revenue problem without visibility into application usage. They were billing client for hours that couldn't be justified. Traditional time tracking would have shown those hours as productive. Application level monitoring revealed the truth. This is the truth with the application level tracking system. Question number 2. Are remote employees actually active during logged hours? Or are you paying for idle time? Here is the uncomfortable reality according to a 2023 Owl Lab study. 37% of remote workers admit to work while appearing offline or not working while appearing online. 37% ideal time detection is not about surveillance. It's about operational accuracy. If someone logs at 8 hours but 3 of those hours show zero keyboard activity, zero mouse movements, and no application interaction, you have a visibility gap. Is that person in meetings, on calls, or are they simply away from their desks while the clock runs? A financial services company with a distributed team of 45 analysts discovered an average of 93 minutes of idle time per employee per day. 93 minutes. That's nearly 16% of workday unaccounted for. Multiply that across your entire workforce and you are looking at significant payroll leakages. We will see about the third question. Question number 3. Who is overworked versus who underutilized? It won't answer the question. Question number 4. How does productivity vary across days and shifts? You can't get the answer for this. Question number 5. Can you verify work for audits and billing disputes? No, you won't get the answer for this. So what is the solution? So these 5 questions represents the visibility gap between knowing when someone worked and understanding what actually happened during those work hours. And that gap is exactly what workforce analytics and employee monitoring platforms are designed to close. So let's talk about what real visibility looks like in practice. So if traditional time tracking leaves us with all these blind spots, what is the alternative we have? This is where modern workforce monitoring platforms fundamentally change the question. Platforms like TimeChamp do not just record hours, they capture work behavior, and there is a critical difference here. Let's break down what modern monitoring actually does. First, automatic apps or websites tracking. From that moment an employee starts their workday, the platform is silently cataloging every application opened, every website visited, and how much time is spent on each one. But here is what makes this operationally valuable: intelligent categorization. TimeChamp automatically classifies applications as productive, unproductive, or neutral based on the organization's work context. Salesforce, Zira, and Slack might be productive for your team, while YouTube, Insta, and online shopping sites are flagged as unproductive. I will show you a real case study with a 47% marketing agency in Austin. We implemented this and discovered that their team was spending an average of 1.8 hours per day on unproductive websites during the work hours. That's 22% of an 8 hours of a day. Within 30 days of making this data visible to managers, unproductive time dropped to 43 minutes per day. That's a recovery nearly hour per employee per day without a single termination. Yes, it's possible with TimeChamp. Now let's talk about what actually changes when organizations move from basic time tracking to workforce monitoring platform like TimeChamp. Not a theoretical benefits, measurable documented outcomes, you will get it. This is the real world impact. So let's start with billable utilization, which is critical for professional services firms, agencies, and consulting teams. A mid-sized IT consulting firm with 47 employees was tracking time entries manually. Their report billable utilization sat at 62%. Management assumed that gap was unavoidable. Admin work, meetings, training, these all. But when they deployed TimeChamp's application and website tracking, they discovered something different. Employee was spending an average of 93 minutes per day on non-work related sites during the billable hours. Yes, surprising. Not malicious, just undocumented context switching, personal browsing, and unstructured downtime that wasn't being captured or managed. Within 4 months of implementation, activity monitoring, and weekly productivity reviews, their billable utilization climbed to 78%. That's a 16 point increase. For a firm billing at an average rate of $125 per hour, they translated to approximately $34,000 in additional monthly revenue. Same headcount, same clients, just better visibility into how time was actually being used. This is the real case study. But monitoring is not just about catching problems, it's also about preventing them. Burnout and overwork are expensive. Replacing a burnout employee cost anywhere from 50 to 200% of their annual salary. Depending on the role, time champs work or utilization report flag employee working excessive hours, weekends or late night consistently. A software development team lead told us she identified two senior developers logging 6 plus hours a week for 3 consecutive weeks. She hadn't asked them to. They were trying to hit a deadline but hadn't communicated they were underwater. Because she caught it early through time champs activity data. She redistributed the work and prevented what would have likely become burnout and attrition. So friends, early visibility means early intervention. Now, here is an important reality check. Not every organization needs full workforce monitoring, and that is perfectly fine. If you are running an 10% marketing agency, everyone is in the office, you can literally see who is working on what, and your billing clients straightforward hourly rates. Basic time tracking probably works just fine. You don't need screenshots, you don't need productivity scores, you just need accurate hours logs for invoicing. The same applies if you are managing a small accounting firm with 5 employees who have been with you for years. High trust, proven output, direct visibility, these are all matters. A simple punch clock or basic timer does the job. But here is what we are observed across the thousands of organizations. There are 5 specific operational triggers that signal you have outgrown basic time tracking. And when these triggers hit, the visibility gap we discussed earlier becomes a genuine business risk. So if you are experiencing any of these 5 triggers, you are not looking at a nice to have upgrade. You are looking at an operational necessity. Visibility gap has become a business liability, which brings us to an important question. What should you actually look for when evaluating workforce monitoring platforms? Now let's address the elephant in the room. The biggest object to employee monitoring is not technical, it's culture. The fear is real. Employee here monitoring software and immediate think big brother or big boss. Micromanagement, lack of trust. And if you implement workforce monitoring poorly, that's exactly what you will create. But here is what we have learned from organizations that succeeded. The difference between the effective monitoring and a toxic surveillance culture comes down to how you implement it. Let's start with the transparency principle. This is non-negotiable. Before you deploy any monitoring platform, announces it. Explain exactly what will be tracking and why. Don't bury it in a policy document nobody reads. Have actual conversations. One mid-sized software company we studied, about 180 employees across 3 locations, held a department meetings before implementing the task. They walked through these dashboards, showed employees exactly what managers would see, explained the application usage and activity patterns would be tracked, but personal browsing during breaks wouldn't be flagged. More importantly, they gave employees access to their own productivity data. Interesting. When people can see their own patterns, when they worked most efficiently, where time disappeared into unproductive applications, monitoring shifts from surveillance to self-awareness. Now, I would like to share a real-time example. A professional services firm implemented TimeChamp with full transparency. They had company-wide training sessions, gave employees dashboard access, focused manager conversations on support rather than surveillance. The results? Boom! It's 23% increase in billable utilization over 6 months. But more telling, their employee satisfaction scores improved 18 points and volunteer turnover decreased. That's what happens when you implement monitoring as a productivity intelligence tool rather than a digital panopticon. So, after everything we have covered, the question becomes, where does TimeChamp actually fit in this landscape? Because here, the employee monitoring market has two extremes. On one end, you have basic time trackers like Toggle and Harvest. They are simple, they are inexpensive, and they will tell you how many hours someone logged. But as we have discussed, they can't tell you what happened during those hours. They can't tell you if your remote team developer spent 6 hours in productive development of a tool or 3 hours on YouTube. They required manual input. They rely on employee honesty and they leave massive visibility gaps. On the other hand, extreme, you have surveillance heavy platforms like Terramind or Verito, Terramind or Verito. These tools were built primarily for security and insider threat detection. They capture keystroke logs. They record every email and chat messages. They can trigger alerts based on a specific word type. They are powerful, but they are also invasive, complex to manage, and they often create the exact surveillance culture we talk about avoiding. So, who is TimeChamp actually built for? First, remote and hybrid teams that need accountability without micromanagement. A marketing agency we work with in Austin manages 17 remote employees across 6 states. Before TimeChamp, their creative director had no visibility into whether the deadlines were realistic or if the team members were overloaded. Now she can see actual work patterns, identify when designers are context switching too frequently, and make data-driven decisions about workload distributions. Second one, professional services firms tracking billable utilization. A consulting firm with 43 employees was losing approximately $18,000 monthly to unbilled time that couldn't be accounted for. TimeChamp automatic application tracking revealed that consultants were spending productive time in the client systems but forgetting to log those hours manually. Billable utilization increased from 62% to 79% within 3 months. Implementation is deliberately straightforward. The TimeChamp agent installs in under 3 minutes. Productive versus unproductive applications categorizes are pre-configured for common roles with full customization available. Manager dashboards require minimal training because the interface prioritizes clarity over feature density. Most organizations are fully operational with their first week. From a cost perspective, TimeChamp typically runs between 60 and 70% less expensive than enterprise monitoring platforms like Terramind, while providing the productivity focused features most organizations actually need. For a 50% team, the difference often represents $15,000 to $20,000 annually, making TimeChamp accessible for growing companies that are not ready for enterprise level security platform. So here is the bottom line. If you are currently using traditional time tracking and you are experiencing the visibility gap we discussed earlier in this video, if you need to understand not just when your team is working, but what they actually accomplishing during those hours. If you want workforce accountability without creating an apprehensive surveillance environment, time champ is purpose built for exactly that use cases. If you need to understand not just when your team is working but what they are actually during those hours. If you want workforce accountability without creating an apprehensive surveillance environment, Time Champ is proposed built for exactly that use case. We offer 14 days free trial with full feature access, no credit card required upfront. And here is what I had recommend. Use the trial period and measure your current visibility gap. Pick three of these critical questions we discussed earlier that you can't answer today. Can you identify which team members are overworked versus underutilized? Can you verify that remote employees are actually available during their scheduled hours? Can you quantify how much time is lost to unproductive applications? Are you ready to move beyond the basic time track? Start a 14 days free trial with TimeChamp. No credit card is required. Pick three critical visibility questions you can't answer today, but your team productivity. Then run time champ for 2 weeks and see if those questions become answerable. Visit timechamp.io to get started. Schedule a personalized demo to see exactly how timechamp works for teams like yours. Stop managing assumptions. Start managing with data. Thank you for joining the session. I am signing off. We'll connect again with another video. Thank you. See you again.